I am honored to be with Mary and Jim Rickert, owners of Prather Ranch in Fall River Mills, California. That's northern California, like not too far from Oregon. You said you're near Redding? Yeah.
Redding is kind of the hub. We have
Okay.
operate in 5 different counties in northeastern California,
Okay.
but our processing facility is about 15 miles south of Klamath Falls, Oregon.
Great. Well, welcome to the show, guys. This is going to be really fun. I uh I actually met Jim and Mary, oh, I don't know, 10 years ago or 8 years ago. We did a story with the print magazine about them. They have a very special herd. They're a ranch. They have they herd cattle, and they're gonna fill us in much better than I can. But the reason I am talking to them, besides that they just have a really interesting story, is that we are doing a season now. This is the first episode where we're talking about the medical sector of machining. And so now we're going to show how a ranch in California, cattle ranch, has a very interesting connection to machining. Um, so, first, I just want to get a quick overview of Prather Ranch. Give me the 3-minute story of the ranch, and then I want to get into what it means to have a closed herd. So what's the story? What do you guys do?
Well, the ranch is one of California's original ranches, and been actively operated as an agribusiness since the 1860s. And actually, the name Prather Ranch goes back to a previous owner. And Mary and I got involved with it in 1979 as ranch managers, with the ranch owner being a man named Walter Rouse, who was in the supermarket business. And that evolved over the years into a business relationship. And then after he passed away, we acquired ownership of the property. It's a closed herd, which means that we don't introduce new females to it. We also operate under ISO 9000 standards. So we go through a lot of GMP manufacturing. We keep track of all the animals. They all have separate ID numbers. They all have, at birth, we have genealogical records. We even track the lot numbers of the vaccines that each of them have received in their lifetimes.
Very interesting.
So it's a little intense that way. And we haven't introduced new cattle to the herd. In what we have for primary and a backup herd. So in the primary herd, we haven't added animals to it. Live animals, females, since 1975, and then on the backup herd, it's been 1992. So
Okay.
basically, that's
I don't understand. You have a primary herd and a backup herd.
Right. Well, some of the companies have been concerned that if we had developed a disease in our primary herd, that the backup herd, we wanted a second because we were their exclusive supplier. They wanted the extra comfort that basically they'd be able to source animal products from the backup herd that we by keeping them separate from each other.
Great. Okay. Back up. I want the definition of a closed herd for people, because this was something I didn't really know about before.
Well, the FDA has a definition of a closed herd that involves not contact with other animals, other cattle. It has to have had closed genetic material as far as other contact with other introduction of live animals to it for 8 years. It has to have a whole record keeping system like the one I described, where you go into a lot of detail. And if an animal happens to be sick, you record that and you define that. It has to have ingredients that go into the animals to feed, all that sort of thing. We went through a lot of testing programs. We actually whole herd in the early days. We went through and did with our veterinarian, and we have a contracted veterinarian that's been looking at the herd. That firm has been our veterinary firm since 1964. So we've worked with these. We have a long-term relationship with a veterinarian. We've gone through and screened the herd for various bovine diseases back in the day, and tested all of them. And then if we found something that was positive for bovine virus diarrhea, for example, or BVD, then we removed it from the herd. So we've done this monitoring for a number of years to where we feel like we have animals that are extraordinarily healthy. In fact, it turns out to be that way. We have very little sickness in our herd, and we graze the animals on the same locations year after year, and we work real hard at caring for them.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing, Noah, is that we can only use our own trucks and trailers to transport our cattle as they go from summer range to winter range.
Wow.
So that is imperative that we don't cross-contaminate with other
That makes
cattle.
total sense, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also the different winter ranges and summer ranges were very isolated from other cattle, so that we can't have animals getting in from neighbors. So we're really careful about isolating our cattle from other cattle for potential risk of exposure to any other illness or disease.
Right, because that's the thing you guys were saying before, how cattle graze, and you might get some stray cattle from another ranch that wanders in and could mess yours up.
Right. And you know, the scope of this is too, because cattle take a lot of feed every day, each individual animal. Roughly, they eat about 3% of their body weight every day in dry matter. And that, say you got a 1,200-pound cow, that's 30 or 40 pounds of dry matter. But grass, your lawn clippings, are really about 80% water. So when you're looking at, we have to figure out how to provide each animal about 150 to 200 pounds of lawn clippings, for example, of people that understand lawn clippings every day.
Per
Every day. So
every day.
So yeah, do you have enough grass to just have them graze? And
that's that we in decent years that we don't have a drought, the answer is yes. In years like this where it hasn't rained significantly since May, we're feeding them hay that we raised. You know, that's our backup, is to cut hay on a farm we have. And,
so they're not entirely
them,
grass fed, but they're pretty much grass fed.
Absolutely.
Well, there probably aren't any cattle grass fed in California right now because we haven't had any
There's
rain.
nothing for them to eat. We were fortunate though, with all the big California fires, at least they didn't burn our ranches, our grazing land.
They came right close to it.
Oh man, it came right to the boundary line.
Oh, wow.
In one case. So, and the other side is the scope to do all this. We end up with grazing a little over 30,000 acres is our total ranch, and that land, and it's all private land.
It's deeded and leased. A lot of it's leased.
Yeah, some we own, some we lease. But the scope of that is, if you do the calculations, it's a piece of land that's about a mile wide, and if it was contiguous, it's over 50 miles long, about 55 miles long.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
So that's the scope of what we're working with. So you can imagine it's not contiguous. That's one of the things. Some parts of it are 200 miles apart. And you've got I can't even guess how many hundreds of miles of fences we have.
And 2,600 cattle to 2,800. How do
Yes.
you, I mean, that's got to be a heck of a job to stop any stray thing from, I mean, what if like a bird flew in and it had some infection
Well, at
to it,
some
or,
point you have to accept those kinds of risks.
and you're
we
constantly
do
testing too to make sure.
and we do testing to make sure. But we have on one ranch a resident elk herd, and it's quite annoying. We have to worry about it contracting some disease someplace, but we've not found anything at this point. We've got wild pigs, and we've got a
lot of deer,
and you name it.
And they're part of, but then can they interact with the cattle?
they really don't too much.
No, but I mean, couldn't they infect them if they're coming from the wild?
There's nothing that our vets are aware of. The one that would be an effective animal would be buffalo, and we thankfully don't have any buffalo. We got a lot of other things, but we've got about everything else that'll be in California, but we don't have any buffalo.
And we've had wolves.
Oh yeah, and you name it.
I mean, this is such an interesting topic right now, of course, because you have people talking about herd immunity, and
yes,
this is the truest version of herd immunity, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we've tried to achieve herd immunity during our career.
And we have an intensive vaccination program where everything's vaccinated on a regular basis. We keep track of all the vaccines they receive.
So you're not anti-vaxxers then? You're pro-vax?
No, we're not anti-vaxxers by any stretch of the imagination. We have a detailed. Our veterinarian takes liver samples actually from our cattle, and to monitor what's going on. And they basically will make a prescription mineral package for them. So we have a mineral package.
You guys
we
okay?
went away for a second here.
There we go.
Somebody was trying to call us. I'm sorry.
Yes,
don't worry about it. That happens all the time.
Okay.
We have a mineral package that's the veterinarian prescribes to us that, for example, in our volcanic soils and some of the sedimentary soils we have in the ranch, we're very deficient in selenium. And so while selenium could be a toxic material, and it is, but we actually feed it at prescription levels to our animals. Because without it, it's kind of like one of those little tiny things. You don't have to have very much of it, but if you don't have it, it causes cattle a real problem. They get to be 500 or 600 pounds and playing around, and they just drop over dead. It's called white muscle disease. Yeah, and so we spent a lot of time developing systems and learning. I mean, all this is kind of learn by doing kind of approach, because when animals start dying, you start doing research on it, and you try to figure out what's happening. We hopefully, after 40 plus years of doing this, there's always the one out there that surprises you, but we try to stay on top of all that.
Right.
And we always have this. There's always something new coming up. Like, for example, we lease land near the city of Redding, in fact, in the city limits in some cases, and it belongs to a charitable foundation, and we've tried to develop a relationship. What the idea behind all of this is that we can graze cattle, and instead of having a community park that has a high fire danger, we graze cattle on it and take the grasses out of it, basically, And in return, we get the grazing, our cows get the grazing, and the community gets a wildfire fuel reduction area and a buffer around their community. So we do quite a little bit of that in some areas around the city of Reading. Well, one of the things that happened a couple of years ago was, because you're in town, there's lots of neighbors. I mean, we graze next to residential subdivisions. Well, somebody thought it was a really good idea to dump some of their trimmings off their bushes off into the pasture when our cows were there, and turned out they were oleanders, and oleanders are a deadly poisonous plant, and they killed a couple of them. So I mean, you know, we had to do a little research to figure out why these really otherwise completely healthy animals were dropped over dead. Well, as we researched the miles of fencing and where we were next to these, I had a suspicion, and lo and behold, and they went, oops, we didn't know about that, you know, but there was 2 dead animals.
Oy. Okay. So you have a main business where you'd say your main business is selling your beef products, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then you have a second business where you're selling to the medical industry. So first, I want to just talk about the meat one just a little more. So to keep your stuff so pure, you have your own slaughterhouse. Nobody has their own slaughterhouse along with their own ranch, do they?
Not that I'm aware of. I think there might be a place that has a cattle ranch associated with it in somewhere in the South, Alabama or Georgia.
Because it's two different. It's 2 different arts. I mean, one is being out there and raising the animals, and the other one is
it. And the regulatory burden on USDA federally inspected slaughterhouses is an extraordinary task. I mean, it does require, in a lot of ways, really 2 different mindsets. It's one's a completely different process than the extensive. One's very intensive in a very small facility. Our facility is only about 5,000 square feet, and the other is, 30 some odd thousand acres.
Wow. So when somebody buys meat from the Prather Ranch, it's, you know, that it comes from the, you know, the purest of the pure closed herd, and then it's not going to go to any unknown meat packer, and it's just been hands-on with you the entire time until it gets to the store.
Absolutely.
And another thing, Noah, that we do is we E. coli test about 3 times more frequently. That's required by USDA regulation. So we are really on top of our sanitation and cleanliness aspect of processing meat.
Why do you test for so much more than the other people? Do you think the other people just don't do
we just feel
do?
Like it's, we just feel like it's important.
It's proactive. We just try to be proactive.
We have to meet the USDA standards in our processing facility, period. There's no doubt about that. But
it seems like that would be the low. That seems like it's a low standard compared to what you
It is the low standard, and that's the point I'm making, is that we have another standard we call the grandchildren standard. If we wouldn't feed it to one of our 6 grandchildren, we don't want to sell it to a customer, to anybody in the community. And that's a higher standard, and we explain that to our meat cutters, and they kind of nod their head and get it. I said, this is, and in fact, that's one of the perks of working in the company, is they get beef. They get about a half a beef every year. So everybody who works there eats the product, and they feed it to their families.
Wow.
So we're pretty engaged in trying to do it the right way. There's the difference between processing 20 beef in a week versus 4,000 to 5,000 a day in a big plant. It's quite, I mean, it's just a little more detailed and focused.
And
But
I
you
like to
have such a
use-
huge, but you have such a huge herd. This is like maybe the top, it's like 2,600 cattle. That's maybe the top 3-4% in the world as far as number,
Well,
how large it is, or in the United States?
In the United States, it's probably that, because the average cattle herd in the United States, I mean, there are some big herds that are 10 or 15 or 20,000 animals. So there's a few big ones like that. I mean, the Mormon Church has a great big herd. There's a few other ranches that have big herds. But after you get over there's a list of the top 25 herds in the United States that comes out every once in a while. And we're below that top 25, but we're probably in the top 1,000.
Okay, and those guys are all slaughtering their cattle like quickly, and you can only process a few in a day.
That's right. Their animals go into the big commercial systems, and ours is like I say, we do 20. Typically,
so why do you
about
need
20.
why do you need so many cattle if you're only going to do 20 a day?
Well, that's the way the biology works, interestingly enough. If we have about 1,500 of these cattle, of the 26 to 2,800, 1,500 of them are breeding age females, and that we try to get pregnant. And out of those, we end up with successful weaned calves that leave their mothers, of somewhere around 1,250 to 1,350 animals. The rest of them, somewwhere along the way, the mother didn't conceive, or the calf died in childbirth, or in calving. Just along the way, you have a certain amount of loss, particularly in that process. There's some that will, cows that will abort their fetuses and that sort of thing. So then you take that, and then we're trying to keep the herd the same size, and we select the females from that. So let's say we have 1,250 that is the output from all those mothers every year. That's what comes into the herd. And we slaughter 1,040 animals, which is 20 a week times 52 weeks, then we're only left with about 200 or so after that.
Okay.
And out of that 200, we have to keep about close to 150 to 200 as females to grow into, and some what we call cleanup bulls. We have to keep a couple hundred on top of that to be the next mothers when they grow up, because we have cows from, basically newborns all the way to some that are 19 or 20 years old.
Which is old for a cow. Our cows have a lot of longevity because of the
20 years old. Yeah. What's typical age for?
10, 12, lots of times.
Would be the maximum for most.
And then how old are they normally when you kill one?
The fat, what we call it, we have two groups of cattle that go through the processing plant. One is the fat cattle, which are animals, the younger animals, and they're roughly 12 to 1,500 pounds of size, and they're 18 to 24 months of age. Then we have the culls, which are either cull bulls or cull cows, and they're females and males that either typically the males are kind of after a while they get old and grumpy, and we don't like them around. They're hard to get along with.
They also get a little too big and too heavy for cows too.
Yeah, so there's just lots of reasons. They get to be a little dangerous after they get some size on them. And then the females that don't get pregnant, then we put them through the system, and a lot that will make them into typically ground beef. Though we do actually have a new market for what I'll say the cull cows. There's a little trend in the Bay Area restaurant thing now to buy aged cows and then dry age them for like 45 or 60 days, and then it's an ultra specialty thing, and it's very concentrated flavor.
What
And
does it mean to? I know we need to get on the medical stuff, but I've had this. I read a book about it, and I can't remember what it is exactly. What does it mean to be dry aged?
Well,
For
we
meat to
dry
be
age
dry
our
aged?
beef, and that's a real rare product anymore. Dry aging means that the animals, you take in our case, we take the carcass and we hang it in a cooler, and we hang it for 2 weeks. And so that's all part of our system. We have aging coolers, and we put them in there, and you keep it at about 35 to 36, 37 degrees temperature. And you let that animal just sit there. And in that process, it loses about 3% of its body weight, the carcass weight. It just shrinks because of primarily evaporation. But the muscle fibers in the beef start breaking down a little bit, and so that actually tenderizes the meat. And then the loss of this process involves bacteria. And there's bacteria, and there's just we're really arrested decomposition is what's going on there, and it concentrates the flavor, and it just becomes quite a bit tenderer and more tasty.
Okay.
But it comes at a price, and that is you lose 3% of the body weight. So something that a big plant would sell because they process and get them out within a couple of days, ours just disappears. I mean, we just have on a it's
so it's not healthier. It just tastes better.
It tastes better. Yeah, it definitely tastes better. And our old partner in the business, Walter Rouse, always was of the opinion that and beef producers shake their head at me a little bit when I'll say this, but that we probably eat more beef than we need to in the United States, but we ought to eat higher quality and enjoy it more.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. So this gives us a really good idea now of what you're working with. And now you have another business in which I believe you phrased it to me before as that you are providing raw materials for various companies. So the first time we interviewed you 8 years ago, I think, 12 years ago, maybe it was 12 years ago, we were talking about,
it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about how people would actually use some of the bone from your cattle to make bone screws, or at least as part of the process. And of course, the reason is that it's pure. It doesn't have mad cow disease or who knows what in it. So then we can feel safe to use it in other things, putting it into our bodies, etc. So just explain that a little bit. You told me that that business is kind of like less growth, and some other businesses are more growing. But fill me in on what you were doing and now where things are going.
Well, this whole concept for us started with back in the day,
1990.
Yeah, 1990 or so, when the actresses and all of the ladies were getting dermal fillers made out of called collagen, and you'd have the
you mean in the lips? You mean?
Yeah, and all that stuff. Well, this really started there, and we were approached by the Collagen Corporation, which was in a Bay Area company, that they wanted to have a clean source of supply. They had heard a little rumblings about an unknown cow disease in Europe which turned out to be mad cow disease. And the last thing they wanted to do was to, because there is no real way to denature without destroying the item you're working on, to denature mad cow disease, from some kind of a treatment. You can't. There's no kill step for it without destroying the whatever you're working on.
And then you can. But mad cow disease is weird, right? You can get it, and then you don't know you have it for 10 years or something,
or 15. Yes. And so you and the other side of it is, if you're a manufacturer and you're blissfully going along, and all of a sudden you infect tens of thousands of people, that's a black swan, a company-ending event. And so, as an insurance policy, they felt it was important to have a clean source, that they'd done everything. And in fact, it was before closed herds were defined. And so we actually were in the process, and I can remember being in Palo Alto with a group of FDA people and veterinarians and
why was it so important to you guys to make a closed herd before, before people knew much about mad cow, or before people, you were selling to companies doing medical devices, and before organic was so trendy? And what was the reason for this? Or you just sort of inherited this pure thing and you didn't want to change that?
We felt that it was good animal husbandry to raise the herd, and so instead of buying replacement females for our herd, we thought it was better to grow them inside the herd and have that genetics that were adapted to our environment.
You still have to bring in bull testosterone for the genetic diversity, but
we do. We bring in bull sperm, frozen bull sperm, and liquid nitrogen.
Sperm,
and it turns out that, and that turns out that is one of the least infective. Mad cow disease has never been found. They test all kinds of things, in Europe, and bull sperm, frozen bull sperm was the least infective thing. They never saw anything in that. It's because we need to have genetic diversity in this thing. And in fact, we got heavily involved with the University of California as a test herd back in the day when the bovine genome was sequenced. And so since we knew what our animals, who their parents were and what was going on, they would then do they tested what they thought was going to be. And so we would work back and forth to refine the sensitivity of their parentage tests. Wow. And some of their other testing. We could give them we were a beta model for them to work from.
Okay. So back to, you got these actresses and they want collagen for their lips or whatever, and they came to you. Okay. Well, what happened next?
Well, first thing is, there was no definition of a closed herd at that time. We decided we wanted one, and the company wanted one, and FDA wanted one, but nobody knew what it was. So we all had this meeting in Palo Alto I was talking about, and we wrote closed herd with a big question mark on a whiteboard, and people started throwing ideas at it. And that's where the current definition of closed herd comes from, is that meeting that was now back around 1990. Actually,
you were part of the naming process of defining a closed herd.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. I put into it from the husbandry side. Somebody's got to actually do the work. So it's easy to make a regulation, but if you don't involve somebody who actually does the work, you could make it impossible to actually meet the regulation. So I always tried I wanted to be there and be the voice of reason, that, we can't stand on our head and do this, that, or the other thing.
That makes total sense. Okay. So, so sorry to interrupt. So then what happened? What happened next? After, so you started, the closed herd was defined, and you started selling the collagen. Did you start
Yeah,
selling the collagen?
we were under contract with the Collagen Corporation, and then we also, a big part of this was writing a set of standard operating procedures, SOPs,
Okay.
and then
Mm-hmm.
we broke down every process that we did into SOPs, and logging it, and then we had to integrate these SOPs and our ISOs, the ISO system that we don't have a separate CE mark. We integrate our system into the whoever the manufacturer is at the next step.
Okay.
But along the way, we had to integrate all this into the USDA HACCP plan, Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points plan, that was required by food safety. So all this stuff had to get it kind of integrated together, which was no small task.
Okay.
And Noah,
Yeah.
Collagen Corporation operated for several years, and they were the ones that constructed, we worked together and constructed the slaughterhouse on the ranch. And so that's how we ended up with having a USDA federally inspected plant on the ranch, is through working with them. And then eventually some kind of researchers came up with an alternative called, I think it's Ristylane. And so there's other alternatives to collagen. Collagen got purchased by a company named Allergan. And this is what happens in the biomedical field all the time, is these companies get absorbed by other companies, and new research happens and new products come online. And so we've kind of adapted over the years, and we've provided products for various different companies over a period of years. And then somebody else new pops up, and then we start sending product to them.
Okay. So who popped up next?
Well,
we've had a lot of players. We've done a lot of different. We've done a lot of bone work and tendons and pericardiums.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about the bones.
Well, there was a company that did bone screws. It was part of a university, a spinoff, and they made bone screws that they were making them from both human cadaver bones, and they weren't getting the quality and the quantity they wanted from humans. And of course, you always had the issue of a human product that people don't normally donate their femurs, so they died from something. And you don't want to have people that live to be 90 or plus years old, the quality of their bones weren't real good. So you're usually, the perfect thing was a busload of priests that were young that got in an automobile accident someplace, and they didn't have it. That's a fairly limited supply.
And I always used to say, I said, well, we at least know where our cows are on a Saturday night. And so
exactly. People are gross. Look at what's going on outside. People are disgusting.
Yes.
I went to the supermarket last night with my wife, and she was just like, I just want to get out of here. These people are just.
So we actually are a little biased, but we feel that bovine raw materials are probably a superior product to human parts that they use.
Superior because they're cleaner, or superior for other reasons?
Well, we just have a lot more control over their behaviors, I guess is a good way to put it. So that's just.
You don't have to worry about personal freedoms when it comes to.
No,
that's right.
No.
That's right.
They don't. They don't get to go and complain to the county and say, we don't want to be vaccinated.
That's right. That's right.
There you go.
No, it's mandatory vaccination. If you could be restrained, you got vaccinated in our system.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So they take these. They were using human bone. They came to you, and they were taking some cow bone. So how does this work?
Well, it there's still a little bit of a problem under that when they were making them directly out of cow bones. That there still was a little bit of a problem. Occasionally, they'd have a rejection. Your body would recognize it's a foreign material. The cow bone was.
Would they take these cow bones? I want to just understand, like, how visualizing. They take the cow bone, and then they cut it into like a bar, and then they stick the bar into an actual machine, and it machines it out.
Yes, and so it looks like a screw or a pin or a plate or something like that.
Does it look brown, like it came from bone, or does it?
It's very, very white.
White.
It actually they really do a lot of cleansing of taking most of the. What they try to do is denature the bone so that it's just a calcium.
That makes sense. I'm just thinking of like the steak I ate last night, like the rib steak, and just picturing, they made a screw out of that, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's usually femur bones. And so we would send the raw material, these big femur bones.
Big dense bones, which gave you a lot of material to work with, because human bones are much smaller. And so you don't have quite the strength. And of course, we're able to select them at the prime of life so that they're and then so we know exactly what we're getting.
Okay, so the bone screw goes in, and then it's supposed to dissolve into the bone.
Over time it gets absorbed.
Yes.
Now they still were dealing with this rejection thing. So a group of young folks on the East Coast came up with another thing, and this is in stage 3 trials now, where they take the bone and
this is a different company.
So the first thing, they're not doing that as much anymore. They're using more synthetic, so they're just growing it in a lab. Is that how they're doing it, or?
Well, I think they're making them out of ceramics and other different things, and they're still having the rejection issue a little bit. There's just a percentage of people whose immune system reject these materials, and whether you have a steel screw or whatever, there's a level of people that don't their bodies just don't accept these foreign materials.
Okay.
So these young people came up with this concept, and we've been working with them now maybe 4 years, Mary. So that's the other thing. This is a long process. Not only there's no instant gratification. I mean, whether we're raising cattle or working with these startup companies, and most of them are startups, it's a long process to get through all the FDA stuff. Everything it just takes time.
Many years.
You guys seem like patient folks.
Well, you just have to be. I try to have a sense of urgency, but you got to know when to push and when to at some point you just got to accept it is what it is.
Yeah.
So the concept these folks came up with, which I think is really exciting, is they will say you're missing you've got crushed a bone in your finger. Because it's easier for me to explain. You crushed one of those bones.
Okay.
And they end up using some kind of device to figure out exactly what they will X-ray it, scan it, whatever, to figure out.
They kind of do a 3D imaging kind of a process.
Right.
Is what I'm thinking.
And they figure out what it was. Maybe by say it's in one finger, then you go to the other one on the other hand or something and look at it.
You're saying like something fell on somebody's hand and the whole thing just kind of
just turned to mush. Yes. Right.
So they want to recreate your.
So they go and they start out with a cow bone, and they machine a exact, based on what the scan has come up with. They make an exact replica, except slightly smaller.
Okay.
By some small percent. Then they go to your fat cells, and they extract some undifferentiated T cells, which are just generic cells, and that aren't sure what kind of cell they're going to be.
Aren't they for the immune system?
Well, yeah, but
Like
they
you always hear
seem to
about
be,
AIDS patients. They don't have the T cell. The T cells are bad.
yeah. So they extract these undifferentiated cells, which are basically just cells that don't know what they're going to be yet.
Okay.
And they take them out of your body fat, which seems to be convenient, and a lot of people have a little extra. I certainly do. And so they take it out of the body fat, and they extract those, and then they take a 3D printer, and they print over the top of the cow bone all these undifferentiated cells, very precisely. So it's a little coating over the whole thing.
This is where the stuff gets so far out to me. You're like 3D
Oh
printing
man, this
cells
is
and
yes. And then they put some secret sauce on it of some sort. And they say they incubate it. And I don't know what that means exactly, but they put it into, they kind of put it in a medium. And in that process, the secret sauce and the bones, the cow bones, signal to the undifferentiated, your own personal undifferentiated cells that, hey, you need to be a bone cell. And they convert themselves from undifferentiated cells to bone cells, and they're your bone cells with the cow bone in the middle of it all. Wow. Then they implant that back in your body, and they have virtually no rejections from that.
Wow. What is this secret sauce? Do you know the secret?
I don't know. I don't know the secret. I don't know the secret.
I think
you just can't tell me.
I don't know, and I can't tell you. And if I don't know
You'd
what
have
it
to
is.
kill me.
We'd probably have to kill you if we did that.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, there's a lot of exciting applications with various basically bovine body parts, but it's always new and interesting. We've recently shipped, they're doing some research and development with some blood over in Hong Kong, and it's just all kinds of interesting things that we got approached by a company. We haven't, we're probably not going to move forward with them because of volume and location where we're too far for them. But, you know, they wanted to do something for hearts. Basically, it was a collagen product. So it's just all kinds of various applications that improve the quality of life for human beings. Yeah. And so we really enjoy being part of that, and feeling that not only do we raise these animals for kind of a premium beef product, but we also raise them so that we can improve the health and well-being of people too.
Right.
And it seems like it's the ethical, moral thing to do too, is if you're raising the animal and you're taking its life, it seems like we have a responsibility to utilize it as fully as possible and respect the fact that, you know, it's been part of our under our stewardship. So we had some obligation to give it a high quality life and maybe one bad day.
And Noah, I just want to mention too
maybe one bad day.
Yeah. I think as humans, I've had more than one bad day. I don't know about you.
But I just want to emphasize that since 2003, we've been certified humane from Humane Farm Animal Care. And so we go through an annual audit every single year. So there's a third party auditor that comes in to reassure our customers that everything we do is to raise these animals in a humane manner. And that's a really important part of our whole philosophy on the ranch, is to handle these animals gently and give them the best quality of life that we can possibly give them.
You know, and I think that also translates into ultimately in the marketing of some of these products. I mean, I think people would not like to have their some healthcare thing that is really provides something significant for them, but it came at the point where they were torturing animals to obtain the product or something like that.
I think you're right.
And so I think we have, just like I said, a little responsibility there. We're also really try to work. We have a really small group of people that work in our whole system, including our farm, which we have about 20 people that work with us.
Well, we have in the summertime it expands because we have seasonal hay workers, but they're what I refer to as our Prather Ranch family, and a lot of them have been with us. Some of them even 40 years.
Yeah,
And
no, we have one Mexican American family that we have the fourth generation of that family that works with us right now.
Wow.
so
It's been long, and so we've got, you know, some of them
That's
already
really cool.
retired. Yeah, they've been with us for forever, and we try to consciously say people work with us. And so, like for example, on the kill floor, I do I've missed 8 days since May of 1995 working there, but I try to do some of the really
You don't take vacations.
I don't take many
no,
vacations,
especially these days.
and but basically I do some of the worst jobs there. So it's always easier if you do the worst job to ask somebody else to do the second worst job.
Yeah.
So it's kind of lead from the front.
And the other thing is too, we've had a lot of visitors over the years to our facility. We've even had different TV channels come in, and just because we realize that some people are sensitive to the fact that we slaughter animals, but we also are not ashamed of anything we do, and everything we do is in we give the utmost respect to the life of the animal and the purpose that it's been raised for. And so, and we also, I like to call our whole operation in the slaughter plant, it's kind of an artisan approach. It's very personalized, and every detail we try and make sure that we, have the best quality beef or bovine raw material available to our customers as possible. We want to make sure that people are getting what they're asking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other things? Were you doing dental implants with the?
Yes, we have another company that takes bones, and it's not a dental implant. What it is the bondo that connects the dental implant that was created to the jaw. You never can fit them just perfectly. So this company takes cow bones and adds their version of secret sauce and makes a bondo.
Secret sauces.
Yeah.
Well,
everybody has a different secret sauce.
Every company, they don't share their secret sauce recipes with us, but they usually do order steaks when they get their product shipped. They like us.
Yeah,
to
a lot of
some
times we have to throw some meat into the delivery.
So here's what I'm wondering. I have a few beef questions. Does female beef and male beef taste the same?
I would say yes. Mary,
for the most part. That's like one of those age-old questions. A lot of people wonder, does Angus beef taste different than Hereford cattle? And we've gone round and round on that. But
I don't even know the difference.
Really doesn't. I would say
the big difference
once in a while
between beef quality comes from how the animals are handled before they're slaughtered. Okay. You want to handle them very, very gently and very quietly so that they have a minimum amount of stress, so that they end up with you can get high levels of stress hormones and cortisols and things like that happen when you put the animals under stress.
But what about like the Japanese that rub their cattle with the beer?
Sure, that's relief. We don't do that, but that relieves stress for the cattle.
Yeah.
But we raise them in pens that where they walk to the kill floor. I personally go out there and drive them into the plant. The plant's designed so it actually is in the morning. It's the cattle go in on the east side, so we have natural sunlight that leads into the building, so the animals are not afraid of the shadows and all the things. If we tried to process beef in the afternoon, it'd be very hard to get them inside the building. This was something that an old friend of ours, Temple Grandin, when we built the plant, she clued me in on, so that it makes them want they feel comfortable going in it because it has natural light.
That's interesting. The lighting, I didn't know that.
The lighting was because they don't want to go into a dark cave where they're worried about predators.
What about veal? Is veal totally inhumane, Or do you guys do your own version of veal?
We don't do our own version of veal.
We did at one point have a company for about 5 or 6 years that we would ship about 20. They were just under a year old. Was that thymus glands?
Pituitary.
Pituitary glands. Okay. It was pituitary glands. It's been a while. But we actually had to extract those off site because we had to, that's found in the skull. So we would slaughter them, and they were generally heifer calves that probably small pelvic areas. So we knew that they would eventually have trouble calving. So we slaughtered them, and we would take their skulls up to our veterinarian's office and extract the pituitary glands there, and then ship the product from our vet's office.
Yeah.
Because we could not open the skull on site in our slaughter facility.
Because that's part of
okay,
that,
but you weren't selling the meat of those same animals.
Well, we obviously salvaged the meat from them, but they weren't. We left them out with their mothers. They lived they lived on grass. It's quite a little bit different than.
So tell me what I hear things about veal. Oh, they're just kept in a little stall. Well, what is going on with veal?
Yeah.
Tell me, give me the straight dope on veal.
I'm kind of personally uncomfortable with the veal thing myself, to tell you the truth.
What is actually going on with it?
Well, I was a dairy science major in college, and I have a brother.
All right, then I think you would know. So
I would know. So basically, those are, generally speaking, and I'm not speaking ill of the dairy industry, but they take, dairy calves, as after the dam or sire, dam gives birth. Usually they make sure the calf gets some colostrum, and then they raise them in calf hutches. And they usually take the bull calves, and they will put them in these facilities that, what I've been told is, they raise them differently. They give them a diet so that their meat will turn real kind of pale. And
they're pale. They make them anemic.
A little bit on the anemic side.
They keep them in dark rooms because the building dark, so it seems to change some things in the meat quality, and they're not allowed to move around very much.
How much? What does that mean? I'm always picturing them just like this. Like, I mean, they can't live if they can't move at all.
Yeah, I think they've got enough room to lay down, and that's about it.
Wow.
But kind of solitary confinement in small cells for cattle. I don't know. I've seen it before, and I haven't been comfortable with it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But that's just our personal.
Yeah, that's I'm not trying to reflect on anybody that produces it. We let them. They live with their mothers, and they go through their whole life processes, and they're out in grass and wandering around over 30,000+ acres. And I think they can exhibit an awful lot of natural behavior, and in fact, what little luck I've had with animals and farming is to try to observe what nature wants us to do, what it wants to do on its own, and provide the opportunity for nature to exhibit the characteristics, things they want to do. I mean, in the case of cattle, if we can provide them with adequate grass and shelter and shade and good drinking water and healthy environment with good vaccines, they want to reproduce. They want to grow big. They want to live their lives. And so we just kind of provide them the opportunity and let them exhibit their natural behavior and do what they really want to do. That's easier said than done, truth be known. Sure. And in a dynamic world, I mean, we haven't really had rain since May, and so and
we've had
we can't control
that since May, and we're really unhappy.
Well, in some areas we didn't get that, Mary.
I know.
Yeah, some ranches we didn't get anything.
What's your favorite cuts of beef for you to eat?
Well, I like a filet mignon, and Jim and I get, if they have a few extra, or somebody, if the butcher kind of, the guys that's doing the meat cutting, he kind of has a package that maybe doesn't look just so, they kind of keep an odds and ends. And so Jim and I get the odds and ends.
We get the odds and ends.
I like a filet as well. What about you?
Yeah.
Jim?
I you know, a New Yorker rib steak is kind of my favorite on this. But although I'll tell you what, if you get really good dry aged hamburger and get the hamburger from the right, you want to have the mixture of lean and fat just right, and you want to have the fat from the right location on the body. If you've ever been around really low cost hamburger and you put it in a pan and you cook a big patty and it becomes a very small patty with a lot of liquid, that's because they've used fat. The fat they've added to that lean meat has been from the internal organs and inside the body cavity.
So they've added fat to already lean meat?
Yes.
That's how they do normal hamburger?
Oh, a lot. Well, it depends. You know, hamburger is based on a percentage, and you know, the commodity hamburger comes to the grinding houses in 2,000-pound tubs, and it's already boned out, and so they'll either add fat or they'll add lean to it to get their, you know, say they're shooting for 85-15.
Okay.
And you know, a package of hamburger might be from any number of 100 animals, and it might be
all right.
Yeah. You don't want to hear this.
Yeah. So
our pack,
how much does
one animal, but
how much does a filet from Prather cost? If I was to find it where could I find it? Trader Joe's?
No, we basically
mail
sell
order?
mostly in farm. You can find it on mail order, and we have a young couple that handles that for us in the Bay Area. They also do the farmers markets in the San Francisco Bay Area.
So you do farmers markets? Okay.
We do a lot of farmers markets, primarily in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then a few small grocery stores that are real direct sellers in Northern California and Southern Oregon.
We also have a wholesale outlet in San Francisco that we sell some product to called Cream Co. And they provide product to a lot of restaurants.
Yeah, they distribute to restaurants.
Well, okay, so here's another question I have. I like to buy grass-fed beef. I mean, I generally just buy it at like the supermarket, but it comes in the vacuum packed and it says it's 100% grass fed. And I go to the farmers market sometimes and buy from those guys too. But what's really hard to find is skirt steak. I really like skirt steak and flank steak, and they don't make that. It's hardly anybody makes like an organic version or grass-fed version of that. So Mary, you're smiling. I feel like you know something about
this.
Well,
we have lots of flank steak.
Yeah, but the other thing is you got to remember that on a beef, there's only 2 flank steaks.
Flank steak is different from skirt steak.
That's right. That's a different. Flank steak is up in one side of the body. The skirt steaks are part of the connective tissue that kind of holds the internal organs up.
Is there much skirt steak inside one?
No.
So that's why there isn't very much.
That's right. You know, you're lucky to get per animal 4 or 5 pounds of it. You'd be lucky. And then there's another one called either, depending on whether the American version, which is called a hanging tender. Another version of that is a French version, anglais, and it's the same thing. And it's another piece of meat that's hangs inside the body that kind of basically holds a lot of the internal organs up, and animals keeps them up towards their backbone. Okay. And it's a pretty good product as well. If you could find a hanging tender, they're pretty.
Is there something called a bavette?
Yes, and I'm not quite sure where that is, to tell you the truth.
Okay, I
We
bought
don't,
that
it
from a butcher one time, and he said it was like the skirt steak, but better. So,
yeah.
We'll have to
man,
do research
I
on
Yeah,
got
that.
well,
meat experts like you scratching your head, like, what? I
yeah.
didn't think I would ever come
Well,
up with something. What?
yeah.
Um, before we wrap it up, just a couple other questions. What is something interesting that you learned in the last week?
In terms of
Anything?
Well,
anything.
we've had two of our employees come be positive for COVID, taking out a third of our workforce on the
Oy.
cutting room. And I'm learning a lot about how
COVID.
we deal with all the state regulations and stuff about that. So I'm getting very educated on that particular subject.
Well, one thing that I monitor closely is the weather right now, and I've learned that it's, you know, maybe in 10 days we might get some showers, but if that to me is a very high priority. It's one of the first things. I grab my phone and I grab my phone and make sure that check my weather forecast. That's
Yes.
a big deal for us. But you know, I've learned a lot of things in my political career, but I can't, as far as the beef business.
Yeah, what do you
not
learn
too
in your
very-
political? Well, I know you've been, yeah.
Well, we have a governor that likes to make changes regularly, so there's been a lot of new changes each week.
So
looks like we're getting close to some more lockdowns, but
yeah.
so I'm bracing myself for unhappy constituents in our county.
Yeah. Well, yes. So I got your favorite beef. That was something definitely I wanted to. Here, we'll get you on your soapbox a little bit. I'm just curious. What do you? And if you don't really have an opinion, that's fine. But do you have a certain opinion, outlook about what the health of Americans are versus other places in the world, or not versus anybody? But I mean, you guys are believers in sustainability and
Well, you know, one of the good providers of zinc, which we hear a lot about in the news with
yes.
COVID, is beef. But Jim and I don't eat beef every night. We eat it once or twice a week. And I think everything in moderation is key. And I turned to him the other day and I said, one of my New Year's resolutions is to be a little more plant-based in our eating habits for 2021.
So have you tried the Beyond Beef?
No.
No,
I don't.
That's not allowed in your house.
Well, the nutritional,
It's not.
if you kind of read the nutritional side of it,
It's not healthy for you.
It's not particularly healthy for you, you know?
No, and that's the thing, is that I think that God made, you know, carnivores for a reason, and I think that basic nature is we have had several vegetarians that have written books, and we have one, I remember, she was a vegetarian, the butcher, and she wrote a book about, her doctor said, look, if you want to be healthy, you have to start eating meat. But she was very discerning as to where she was going to access her beef. And so she spent a day with us, and then she included us in her book of her journey from vegetarianism to eating a more balanced way.
Being an omnivore, basically. Yeah.
So that's really important.
I think that, you know, we've evolved as humans as omnivores, and I think that involves occasionally eating meat.
Yeah.
And meat has complex proteins. I think there's a lot of things go on.
A lot of amino acids that
a lot of things that people
our
need.
systems need.
And I like the taste of it. Truth be known.
Would you?
We only eat it once or twice a week.
Right. But I guess my point is knowing you know what's the bad stuff that's going on out there. Would you eat something? Say you were at a restaurant and you were on the road and you didn't, for some reason it was an emergency and you didn't have any, you didn't know what the heck, where this meat came from, would you be afraid to eat it?
I'm
Or-
very hesitant to order beef at a restaurant. I usually
Interesting.
I order fish or other dish
Yeah.
or basically vegetarian.
Is that because you think you're going to be disappointed in it? Or is that because you don't think it's good for you?
I think it's both. I think partly is I'm not sure where it came from, and I know way too much about the process, and I'm very partial to our beef, and I feel very confident. I always, when I have a friend or relative order our beef, and I always kind of have a sense of satisfaction that I know that they're eating healthy. I know we make sure that our grandchildren are eating our beef, just because we feel very confident that what they're eating is a really healthy product for them. And
So your answer is you generally don't eat other
right.
beef.
Yeah. Now I'm a little different. I'm probably not.
You're just like, yeah, whatever. It looks good.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be totally. If we had a deer killed in front of me on the road and I was that hungry, I don't think I'd go starve before I eat a little roadkill. I wouldn't have,
Jim's not as discerning.
I'm not as discerning as Mary is. Let's put it that way.
I'm pretty picky.
That's good. You should be picky with what you put into your body.
Yeah. So.
You have anything else to say to the people of the world?
No, I just think it's important as operating a business in this day and age that one thing I don't think we mentioned or talked about is we also have a small foundation that we're really involved in our communities. And matter of fact, we yesterday just made a 800-pound donation of hot dogs to our rescue mission in Redding. And so I think it's really important as human beings that we have a responsibility to our communities too. And so we make a lot of donations over the years, and this is money we have to earn to work for, and we earn as a team that works on the ranch. But we also feel it's important to give back to our communities and to be basically socially conscious, and to really be invested in our youth. We get involved with our 4-H clubs and that kind of thing. So I think it's not just about running a business, but I think it's also being a part of a community and being supportive of your community and being a good role model.
And unfortunately, in the rural areas, our biggest export in places like the little valley we live in, which is our young, bright people. We have a hard time coming up with good quality jobs that can attract them back in our communities, and our schools are shrinking.
Yeah, brain drain.
And it's it's terrible when your biggest export is probably young, bright people. And if I ran my cattle herd that way, and I kept the culls and sent off the sold the prime ones over time, I wouldn't have much left.
Well, maybe it'll change. Like, now that everybody's learning, you don't need to travel to do,
right.
Like people are learning, I don't have to live in New York to
right.
do
we
this
can
job,
hope
or
so.
I don't have to live in Silicon Valley to do this job.
Yeah,
maybe we can hope that people will understand that resilient food systems, that we can't just buy all our food from China or Argentina or Brazil or wherever, that we should actually encourage local producers who are trying to create long-term sustainable food systems that can be done from without really environmentally damaging the world.
Yeah.
And we're trying to demonstrate that. I mean, we're trying to put our time and our effort and our resources into trying to create that, and it's a long-term project.
I just like that you guys, it seems like you approach everything with a purpose, like you
try to. One thing we did not mention is a good portion of the properties that we operate our cattle operation on are in conservation easements. So these are properties that will not be subdivided in the future and
permanently protected.
Yeah, and it's going to decrease the value. I mean, our grandchildren are not going to get wealthy over some of the land that we own. And they were scheduled, some of them were scheduled to be, big,
major
home
home developments, yes.
But they will never be anything more than a cattle ranch. And that's really important. We have one ranch in particular that Jim and I own, that we have 2.5 miles of completely pristine shoreline of the Sacramento River.
Oh, wow.
And that's really important to us, that's part of our legacy that we leave behind, that we protect our natural resources. And that's a really big deal to us.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, this has been a fantastic interview. It's gonna give people a lot of food for thought in many different areas, and it's just so good to catch up with you guys, and I really appreciate everything. If people want to go find Prather Ranch meat, people order them or whatever, just Prather,
PratherRanch.com.
Yeah.
Or call usually they call the we don't do a lot of online sales just because of the cost, but the Bay Area we can.
Yeah, if you go into our website, there's a link to Prather Meats, which is the young couple, the Wongs, that handle and they actually, you can buy individual cuts of meat online, as well as go to the farmers market.
Right,
so
in the Bay Area.
So in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then I think some of that online stuff they're working on, they can actually ship to greater areas of that. It's just at some point the cost of shipping becomes pretty cost prohibitive for people. You end up with the shipping, if you're going to Florida, being as much as the product costs, and that doesn't make much.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is sort of special, but who knows? Maybe somebody will hear this who's doing dental implants or wants to put bone in their machining, and maybe they'll hear this too. And
biologics, I mean, people call me up and they'll say, well, we're looking for a adrenal gland or something. I'll say, well, if it's, I got an anatomy book here, and if it's in the animal, I'll find it.
but the thing, I think the thing that makes us so unusual, Noah, is that we have this, it's been now a 30-year history, that when we have auditors come from basically all over the world to come in, that are hired by these people that we ship product to, the companies that we ship product to, they'll say to us, there is no other closed herd of this size and scale in the entire world, that you guys are unique. And
wow.
We really, and we have that history that no other closed herd does, because basically we were I guess you could say, the pioneers with the whole concept.
What if some terrible person introduced something into the herd? And I mean, how do you guard against that?
Well, it's really tough when you have something scattered over all these areas. And this, if the wrong person wanted to do something, help the neighbors inadvertently threw some oleanders over the fence, and killed a couple of few.
That's why you're constantly testing them, just to try to.
Yeah, try to keep an eye on it. The thing is, though, that the animals are scattered over such an area. I don't know, and we do enough vaccinating it. I don't see a bioterrorist that we'd be enough of a target to, when we,
they'd have a hard time tracking everything down.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying some jerk was just like, oh, I hate those guys, and then he just kind of like introduced 10 bulls into your.
Well,
just kind of like put them through the fence and just let them go.
Oh yeah, and that sort of thing.
Is this a dumb scenario we're talking about, or?
Yeah, occasionally we'll have a stray animal show up on our places.
Not too.
And so we quarantine the group that they go with, so it doesn't get mixed up with the rest, and we give them a month or something off by themselves, and then if we don't have any
Wow.
kind of disease or anything like that show up, then
That's part of our
we'll do some
protocols.
extra
You guys are
testing and stuff
experienced
like
with all
that.
this quarantining and herd immunity.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah, way more than we want
way
to.
more than the jerks in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm afraid that that's a whole other subject.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I plan for this to come out this week.
Oh, great.
And what I'm going to need is like a really great photograph of both of you.
Oh.
Something
We'll try. Yeah.
something contextual.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
could do
you could.
that.
We've got
some
that I think you'll like.
We've got some
Fantastic.
that are different awards that we've won. You know, we've been recognized by a lot of different environmental groups, the Governor's Awards, that kind of thing, Aldo Leopold Award, for our environmental stewardship practices.
Oh wow.
So I
Okay.
can send that to you. So we'll do that as soon as
All right.
we get our internet going.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You've been a delight to visit with,
Yes.
Nova.
Thank
you.
for
You
this
too.
meeting.
You too.
Well,
Have a
okay.
good one. Thank you.
Take
Sure.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.